Chamrip Sua. Kids in my country call me teacher, or sometimes Aunt Foreigner. Where do you live? Maybe over here in the United States. But I live far from the United States, way on the other side of the world, in the country of Cambodia, over here in Asia. Cambodia doesn't have states like you do in the United States, but we do have provinces. I live in this province down here in the south of the country of Cambodia. Let me show you my house. We have a downstairs room and we have our upstairs bedroom. What is that over the bed? Yes, you're right, it's a mosquito net. We don't have screens on the windows, so instead we put the net over the bed. And this is our kitchen. You can see that it would be way too cold outside with no walls if I lived in Nebraska. But in Cambodia it's okay because it never ever snows. At my house, there are always lots of kids. God has given me a special message for the kids. If you listen carefully, I bet you can figure out what it is. Kids learn lots and lots of stuff. What are you learning? Do you learn at home, or maybe you learn at school? In Cambodia, most kids your age go to a school to learn. They have to get up early in the morning. And what do you think wakes them up so early? Yes, a rooster. And what do roosters say? Well, in Cambodia, they say kaki kiku. And if you lived in Cambodia, you wouldn't have to make your bed. You would just have to fold up your sleeping mat when you were done sleeping. Do you have to wash your face and brush your teeth? Children in Cambodia have to do this too. Where is this girl brushing her teeth? You're right in the river. And then she combs her hair. What do you wear to school to study? Kids in Cambodia wear blue shorts or blue skirt and a white shirt, like you see in the picture. These are the shorts that my son wore to school when he went. This is the rooster in my house. What is he combing? Maybe he's combing his comb. And how do you get to school? In Cambodia, most children walk. Some of them ride a bike, and some of them take the motorcycle with their parents to go to school. Can you count how many kids are on that motorcycle? When they get to school, they can play for a little while in the schoolyard. But then, when the bell rings, it's time to line up and go inside. What is this bell made from? Can you tell? Yes, it's made from a tire rim. When the teacher comes into the room, everybody stands up. They say, Chamriap Sua, and pick their hands up. Their thumbs have to go all the way up to their nose. Then the children listen very carefully to their teacher. Can you tell why? Look at what the teacher has in his hand. Children in the early grades use small whiteboards like this. They also have notebooks like this. The lines are different from the lines that you see in your notebooks. They copy their work from school books that look like this. This is the first grade reading book. The letters are very different too. These are the consonants. There's a lot of them. And these are the vowels. There's way more vowels than you have to learn in school. The first consonant is the letter Ga. Some letters in Cambodian have the body of the letter, and then they even have some hair. So first you draw the body. And then you put the hair on top. Some of them even have feet. Students have gym at school. They like that. They do their exercises together. But what is your favorite part of the day? Yep, in Cambodia, they like recess best too. There are lots of games they can play. Can you see what they're playing with in this picture? Let me show you close up because I don't think you can see clearly enough in the picture. They're little plastic pieces that they flip or they trade. Here's an elephant and there's a tiger. Then they can buy a snack at the snack stall. What do you think they might have for snack? Well, sometimes they like to buy some candy. They have corn candy. It tastes like corn. It's not in the shape of a corn, but it tastes just like the corn on the cob. Or maybe they would want to have some seaweed. A piece of seaweed, that makes a good snack. And if their hands get sticky, well, they would have to wash their hands at the pump. But look at this. What's happening in this picture? Fighting. Do you ever fight with your friends? Of course, this happens in your school. It happens in the schools in Cambodia. Sometimes people are very unkind to each other, and this makes us very sad. Another thing that's the same in both the United States and in Cambodia is that children have families. This is my family. Families are all different. There are different types of people who take care of and love different children. Look at these families in Cambodia. Can you see who takes care of these children? Sraipi is loved for and cared for by her grandmother. Rebecca is loved for and cared for by both her mother and father. Mian Mian is loved and cared for by his mother. And Sraya, oh, she's loved and taken care of by her aunt and her uncle. And what about you? Who loves and cares for you? I am so thankful to God for the way He has made families so that we have people who love and take care of us. Can you think of the first family in the Bible? Who was that? You're right, Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve lived in the Garden of Eden, and their family was perfect. They loved and cared for each other perfectly, and they knew God's love and care very clearly. Do you remember who else was in the family? Yes, their first two children were boys, Cain and Abel. But when the boys were born, they weren't living in the Garden of Eden anymore. They had done the wrong thing. They had sinned, and because of that sin, God had sent them out of the garden. Now their family was not always doing the right thing. Sometimes they weren't pleasing God at all. Some very hard things happened. It was very, very sad, but the boys were sometimes so angry at each other, and they did things to hurt each other. It got so bad that, you remember, they couldn't live together anymore. What about now, where you are? Do families sometimes have hard things happen? Are they sometimes angry at each other? Do they sometimes get so bad that they can't live together anymore? Yes, sometimes that happens in Cambodia too. This happened to Mano. He couldn't live with his parents. They couldn't take care of him. Mano's father was very discouraged about his life. There was a lot of fighting in the family, and he didn't feel good about himself at all. He wanted to feel better. He wanted to be a good father for Mano, but he kept making the wrong decision, and he kept doing the wrong things. Do you ever do the wrong thing? I do. Sometimes I know what the right thing to do is, but I still choose to do the wrong thing. Why is this? God lets us make a choice. We can choose, do we want to do the right thing or do we want to do the wrong thing? Sometimes we still do the wrong thing, even though we know it's wrong. But for me, after I do the wrong thing, I'm really sorry because I know that it makes God sad. And I know that He loves me, and I don't want to make God sad because I love Him. So when that happens, I talk to Him and I tell Him that I love Him, and I tell Him that I'm really sorry, and I ask Him to forgive me. And he does. When I do this, I feel so much better, and God helps me then to do the right thing. But this didn't happen with Mano's father. He just kept doing wrong things, more and more wrong things. One day, some of his friends gave him some drugs that he could take. Do you know what drugs are? Now, have you ever been sick and your parents might have given you some medicine to make you feel better? I'm not talking about this kind of medicine. This kind of medicine we're very thankful for, that God gave people enough wisdom to develop this kind of medicine so that our bodies could feel better. That's a good kind, but there are other drugs that people take which are not the good kind. They don't use them in the good way, but instead they use them to try to help them forget their problems. For a while, maybe the drugs help them to feel better, but when the drugs wear off, they feel just as sad as they did before. There's another thing about these drugs. When people start to use them, after a while they can't stop. Because if they stop, they can't do the things that they need to do every day. They're depending on those drugs. So they use them more and more, and the drug makes them sicker and sicker, and they get sadder and sadder. And life is harder and harder. Pretty soon they can't control themselves anymore. It's like the drug is controlling them instead. Mano's father took some of those drugs. They started to make him very, very sick. But he couldn't stop taking them. He did more and more wrong things. He did so many wrong things, it made his family feel very, very sad, especially Mano. Soon, Mano's dad was doing so many wrong things that Mano just couldn't live with him any longer. And Mano had to go live with his grandma, and that made everyone sad. So why do you think Mano's father didn't just talk to God and tell God that he was sorry and ask God to help him and forgive him and do the right things instead? This is what I do, and it makes me feel better. This is what you can do. Why didn't he do this? Mano's father didn't do this because, you see, he didn't know God. In Cambodia, there are very few people who know who God is. Most of the people pray to a stone god or give offerings to the bad spirits to try to get them to help. Do you think praying to this stone god would help Mano's father? Of course not. The stone god can't hear. The stone god can't see. The stone god's hands can't help Mano's father. But how can Mano's father pray to the real God that loves him, that cares for him, that can help him if he doesn't know him? Someone has to tell them. Someone has to go tell Mano's father about God so that he can love God and know that God loves him too. And then Mano's father can ask God to help him. Do you think God is strong enough to help Mano's father to stop using those drugs that he's been using? Do you think God is strong enough to help Mano's family live in a good way so that he can be a good father and take care of Mano the way that he wants to take care of Mano? Yes, God is that strong. He can, and this is what happened. This is my job, to go to Cambodia and tell the people there about Jesus. Your family gave offerings at the church in order to send me to Cambodia to help Mano's father and other people like him. There, God helped us make a house, a place where people like Mano's father could come and live. This is Mano's father at that house. He's the one in the orange shirt. We could love them and help them to know God, and we could help them to learn how to listen to what God says and do it. Of course, Mano's father can't read the Bible like the one you have in English. He has to look at the Bible. He has to read the one that's in Khmer, the language that Mano speaks. It's a very hard thing, but if we ask God to help, and then we work all together, helping each other, God can heal our hearts and our families. And this is what God did for Mano's father. Soon, Mano's father had stopped using those drugs. Now, he knew that God created him to do a special job. And he loved God, and so he wanted to do that job. He wasn't sad anymore. He wanted to do the things that were right, that God wanted him to do. So what do you think happened to Mano? Yes, you're right. He moved to the house to live with his father, and that was such a happy thing. They loved to be together, but they didn't stay at the house. Mano's father wanted to go to Bible school so he could learn how to help other people who had problems like he did. And Mano, well, Mano wanted to go to the Bible school with his father. That's what he wants to do. They are so happy to be together. I am so thankful that God has given me this special job to tell other people about God. People that don't know him, and I get to tell them that he loves them. I am praying that God will use some of you to do this special job. Let's talk to God about this now. Thank you, God. Thank you for the way that you helped Mano's father. Thank you that you made a way for him to know you and to understand that you love him. I pray that you would work in all of our hearts so that we can understand the jobs that you want us to do. Thank you for spending this time with me today learning about Cambodia. Lia Hai.